Why do so many nonprofits suddenly start talking about major gifts the moment they launch a capital campaign? It's almost as if major donors only exist when you need to build something new. But here's the problem: if you're only engaging major donors during campaigns, you're leaving tremendous opportunity on the table. Today, we're going to be talking about why major gifts should be a part of your fundraising strategy every year, not just when you're raising campaign dollars. That is our focus on this episode. Let's huddle up. Hey, welcome to another episode of Huddle Up with Mark, the Fund Coach. I'm Mark Duncan. It is great to be with you. I'm excited to talk about this because I think I may have been doing you all a disservice. See, I make some assumptions because I've been doing this for a while that you all are clear about the importance of major gifts for annual operations. I know I talk about it often, but there is a difference between annual operations and a campaign. And some leaders, not all, but some, especially organizations that are relatively small to mid-size, only engage in major gifts when there's a capital campaign. And thinking that the only time you need to engage in major gifts is during a capital campaign. And that couldn't be further from the truth in terms of how important this is to your overall fundraising. When I started in the fundraising space, in fact, what piqued my interest, because I've been in the nonprofit space for quite a long time, almost 40 years. But into my time in the nonprofits space, primarily either in the direct care capacity or as a director overseeing direct care, I uh, unintentionally, by accident, sort of stumbled into fundraising, and it was in the context of a capital campaign. You see, I was working as a program director for a camp and conference center many years ago, about over 30 years ago, but this was around 30 years ago after I'd been there for about 4 years in that capacity. And our executive director said, "Well, we're going to launch a capital campaign." I looked around, I said, "What's a capital campaign?" And he said, "Well, we're going to need to raise about, $1.2 million. We want to build a rec center. We want to renovate our retreat lodges and some other things. And it's going to cost us about $1.2 million to do that." So it's 30 years ago. So bear with me. I know that number would be significantly larger today. And when my executive director said, "Yeah, we're going to go," because I said, "How are you going to do that?" He said, "Well, we're going to go and talk to people. We're going to ask them to give money." And I said, "Hold on a minute. You mean to tell me that you're going to go talk to people and they're just going to give us money to do this?" And he said, "Yeah." And, the camp had done a capital campaign some years before that. And I just thought it was absolutely incredible. It was amazing. And that is what launched um, my career. It's what piqued my interest immediately. And the rest is history. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. What I'm here to talk about is the fact that capital campaign fundraising isn't just when you should be soliciting major gifts. Now, full disclosure, this camp that I worked at, that was it. They were only engaged in major gifts during capital campaign because I had not heard of this before. Yes, we did a year-end mailing. And the year-end mailing was fairly successful, but it was very transactional. And again, this was 30 years ago, so much of this was, there were checks that were coming in the mail and so forth. but there was no major gift fundraising happening. And it saddens me to say that this thinking still continues today. Now, it's not because it's intentional, it's just that many nonprofit organizations, especially small to mid-sized organizations, don't really think about it that way, because the fundraising they're engaged in is primarily transactional and they're experiencing some success. You may be, doing an annual appeal through email or direct mail. You may be engaged in a golf tournament, a gala, right? It's raising some dollars for your organization and you've had some success. But all of that is transactional. Not to say you shouldn't be doing it. As I always say, it should be part of a comprehensive fundraising strategy, but it shouldn't be what you rely on. But when we talk about major gifts, it is absolutely critical that you engage in major gift fundraising as part of your annual operation. See, historically, campaigns only happened when you were trying to secure large gifts. Those gifts were pretty visible. The donors were being thanked. There was visibility there. And people like me back then, consultants, coaches, were emphasizing the importance of campaign giving. In fact, when I was in higher education, the role that I had was director of campaign giving. Now, why would you have a position like that? In higher education, healthcare, you're always in a campaign, whether you are actively engaged in a campaign, whether you are planning for a campaign, or you just wrapped up a campaign. You're constantly in campaign mode. Externally, it doesn't seem that way. But internally, while you're wrapping up a campaign or while you're, in the public phase of a campaign, you're already planning what's next and when you're going to launch that. But in other organizations, that's not always the case. And in many cases, boards associate large gifts with expansions and buildings and new programs and those kinds of things. And major donors don't suddenly become generous when campaign starts. That's not how it works. They become generous when you build relationships with them. So, what major gift fundraising really is, it's not a campaign, it's not a building project, it's not a special event. It's about building relationships. I talk about that all the time. It's about establishing trust. It's about building a partnership between you as the leader and that donor on behalf of the people that you serve. And that should be happening all the time, not just during special projects or when you have a capital campaign need. Here's the cost of only doing major gift fundraising during capital campaigns. When a capital campaign need comes up and you start to engage in fundraising, maybe you do a feasibility study, maybe your constituents are teed up a little bit, but for the most part, you're making a shift for a period of time, 5 years, 6 years, whatever it may be, to focus on major gifts. But what you're doing, and you're probably not realizing that you're doing this, is that you are rushing the relationship building process, because now the need has been expedited. The sense of urgency is there. See, the three components of any fundraising initiative, especially a capital campaign, there are three things. There's a purpose. Why are you raising dollars? What's it for? How's it impacting the lives of the people that you serve? Purpose. That's the first thing. Second is there's a dollar goal, how much you need to raise to be able to accomplish that. And third, you have to do it in a finite period of time, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, however long that's going to be. So now You step into doing major gifts when you've not done it before, but now you need a new building, or now you need to expand, your program, and you need a few $1,000,000 to do that over and above operations, I might add. And so now you go from not meeting with, building relationships with, talking to any of your donors who have been giving transactionally to now needing to lean into those relationships and ask them, because it's the only reason that you're doing it, for a major gift. Look at this from the donor's perspective. You're a donor and you're giving annually to an organization. Let's say you're giving 250 bucks. Let's say you have the capacity to do more. And maybe you would do more if you were giving based on a relationship. But you've only been giving transactionally. And now here comes the executive director picking up the phone, right? Sending you an email personally, not an email that's coming from your email platform, because they want to talk to you. And because there's a timeline, you're going to feel rushed, you as the executive director. And by the way, the donor is going to feel rushed also, because you're trying to get to the point where you can ask them for a 10,000 or a $25,000 commitment. But you won't experience any of that if you're engaged in major gift fundraising all the time. It is absolutely critical. This is why I talk about making sure that if you're going to engage in transactional fundraising through direct mail, through social media, through email, through events, that the next natural step is to discern from those people who are giving in that way who has capacity. You do this through wealth screening. Then you know who to focus on building a relationship with. And now, without a campaign, that sense of urgency really isn't there. First of all, you're not going to need to ask for as much as you would ask them for the campaign. Somebody you may solicit $50,000 for the campaign, you may only ask them for 2,500 annually. But that's going to be based on a relationship. And so when you lean in and build these relationships now, when the capital campaign comes up 3, 4, 5 years down the road, you're already there. Then it's not rushed. Because guess what? If you're meeting with them regularly, you're talking to them regularly, they're giving regularly, they're also hearing about your plans to expand. They already know. So when it comes time to solicit them, it's no surprise. They're already thinking about what they're going to do. And here's something else that you may want to think about. And I often talk about this with my clients, and that is capital campaigns are not a time for the annual fund to be ignored. See, many organizations will step back, not emphasize the importance of annual support because they think that their donors are monolithic when it comes to giving. That they only want to give to one thing, and that's the campaign. Well, most donors understand that the organization needs funding to operate every year. But if you don't ask for it, they're not going to give it to you. See, they're following your lead when it comes to you asking. And if you're not making what I call a dual ask, you're also missing out on an opportunity. So, and the benefit of that is this: when you ask for a capital campaign gift, you're going to give people likely an opportunity to pledge that commitment over time. So, let's say that you um, are soliciting somebody. Let's say you're already engaged in major gift fundraising with someone, and they've been giving, let's say, 2,000 a year, right? And you want to solicit them for a campaign gift of for 30,000 over 3 years, which would be 10,000 a year. Well, you can ask them for a $36,000 commitment over 3 years, right? 10 a year going to the campaign, 2 a year going to annual operations. Now, not only have you secured money for your campaign, you've also secured annual fund dollars that you would be asking for every year. You've just secured it for 3 years. And here's another benefit: when the campaign is over, when that payment is over after those 3 years, probably about a year before that last payment, you're going to shift your conversation from keeping them informed, because you should be doing that, to talking to them about what's next. So now they've been giving $12,000 a year. So what do you think it would feel like to them after the campaign is over if you ask them to increase their annual gift from 2,000 to 3,000? Maybe you ask them to do that over 3 years. Now just you've just, confirmed $15,000 over the course of 3 years. You see how this works? It's not difficult. This is about thoughtful planning and making sure that you understand that if you aren't engaging in major gifts to support your annual operations, when it comes time for a campaign, the hill will be a little harder to climb. Now, there are some exceptions, and I'm going to talk about one exception that I am seeing right now with someone I'm working with. This particular person is um, engaging in a campaign for the organization. No prior major gifts being secured at any time in the life of the organization, which has been around for decades. But here's what this leader has done that I believe is going to make the campaign process beneficial. And that is, this person has been extraordinarily visible. This person has been extraordinarily engaging with the people that they serve, that the trust and the relationship building is already there. This is because was the nature of this leader. And so now that a campaign is happening, it is so much easier for this person to pick up the phone, send an email, and get a response and have somebody willing to meet with them, and then sharing this need, and then ultimately asking, because the sense of urgency is there and They can be transparent about that sense of urgency because the relationship's already been established. The trust in their leadership has already been established. But in most cases, that isn't how it works. And this is why it's so important to engage in major gifts throughout the year. Because when it comes time for a capital campaign, so much less work you'll have to do. So, major gifts, not just for campaigns, not just for special projects, should be something that you're doing all the time. Relationship fundraising should be part of your organization's DNA. If you're not doing it now, then just start. Take a look at your donor database. Take a look at the people, very first thing, even without wealth screening, take a look at those people who have been giving to your organization consecutively for 5 years or more. That's where I would start. If they've been responding to your annual appeal every year without fail, they're responding to other fundraising initiatives, then those are going to be what I call your loyals. And that's where you're going to start. And if you're wondering, oh, I don't have time to do this, where am I going to find? I got enough on my plate. 1 hour a week. That's all I'm suggesting. It's 1 hour a week dedicated to relationship building. That's it. And 1 hour will go to 2 hours to 3 hours to ultimately 8 hours, which is about 20% of your time in a typical 40-hour week. That's what you should be aiming for as an executive director, even if you have no in-house fundraising support. You can get there and you can start meeting with people, building relationships, ultimately soliciting them for support. You're going to see your philanthropic support go up. You're going to see the trust in your organization go up. You're going to be able to do more because you're raising more. And when it comes time for a capital campaign, the groundwork has already been laid. So you're listening to this, you're watching this, and you've been on the fence. I don't know what to do. I know I should be doing this, or uh, I can't. I don't have time. Just 1 hour a week. That's all I'm suggesting. Now, if you want to learn more, encourage you to visit my website at thefundcoach.com. There is a resource section. It's a drop down on the website where there's a course and a few other resources that you can purchase. But get started. And if you want to talk, hit the green button on my website. I'd be happy to chat with you as well. As always, this fundraising thing, whether it's capital campaign or annual fund or anything having to do with securing philanthropic support for your organization, it's not about the dollars. It's about what the dollars do for the people that you serve. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we'll see you next time.